Welcome to the 3-0 Show, part of the Athletic Baseball Show. It is Thursday, March 31st. Derek Van Riper, Britt and the King of Waffles, Eno Saris here with you. We are just over a week away from the start of the season. We're recording this one day early, so opening day is almost here. On this episode, we have a great grab bag of topics, a few things happening around the league. I'm pretty excited about the humidor situation that Eno found out about at the end of last week. All 30 parks will have a humidor. We'll talk about the impact of that. City Connect jerseys, one has been revealed, and it's fantastic. We'll describe what that project is, what it means, and why we are excited about it. Second base is going to move in the minor leagues. Albert Pujols is back in St. Louis. I don't know what year it is anymore. We'll probably get to some bold predictions as well. So I got to ask, King of Waffles, you've got a bear over your shoulder. People are watching us on YouTube. You know what?
Oh, those are lederhosen, by the way. Those are
yeah,
my lederhosen from when I was 3 years old.
Okay. That's what I couldn't figure out. I'm like, I can identify everything else in the background. We worked together a lot. I would not have guessed lederhosen with 100 guesses.
I did some modeling. I did some lederhosen modeling.
Wow.
What a fun fact.
Fascinating. Those who are watching on YouTube, including Eno's mom, I do have a ring light. I actually prefer to be dark because I look terrible for this show. But maybe I'll bring out the ring light one day. We will get better at posting little clips, and I will brush my hair and put the ring light on, and then you can see what I look like in the daytime, in all my glory.
I took a shower today, so I feel like
you look fresh and
clubhouse
clean,
leader.
Dude. I think
I shaved. I even shaved. I don't have that shadowy,
I feel
day
special.
of stubble.
You look younger, refreshed. Yeah, with the shave for sure.
And the head-on camera shot hides some of the gray that I'm getting down the lines here. First and third base lines are getting a little gray, but everything out in center field still looks all right.
All right.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Losing some in the power alleys, but all right. Let's move on to actual show content. We were told that there's not enough banter, that we just go. People don't like when we just get into topics. So I'm sure we'll have a lot of feedback about that bit of banter since it was somewhat inorganic, but
strange.
I actually want to go kind of in reverse order of the things I was teasing, though. I want to start with Albert Pujols going back to St. Louis, because I remember when we were doing this show together on the Rates and Barrels feed last season, when the Angels let him go, and then when the Dodgers picked him up, I laughed. I thought it was ridiculous. And I was a little nervous about it because the Dodgers win a lot of games and they're a well-run organization. And if they saw something in Albert Pujols and I didn't see it, then maybe I was actually the dummy in that case, right? But the thing that I completely overlooked about the Pujols edition last year, which from a performance perspective in the limited role he was in, he was very good for the Dodgers as mostly a pinch hitter type against left-handed pitching. The way that the clubhouse was just kind of gravitating around him, that was a big deal. And I think I underestimated the impact that a player, even of Pujols' caliber, could have on a team that was already a great team. And Britt, this is something that I think you probably would have said, hey, that's exactly why he was there in the first place, because you've been in those clubhouses. You can see how players interact in that way. So thinking about him going back to St. Louis, it's not just the happy, feel-good Albert Pujols is wearing the same uniform he wore when he first broke into the big leagues again. There's a significant impact he can have on other players that are going to be there for the next half decade.
Yeah, it's so funny. Last year I was in St. Louis when the Dodgers were there, and they had just gotten him. And they're in St. Louis, and Max Scherzer, who was a trade deadline pickup for the Dodgers, was like, Albert, like running around like a fan. He's like, I got to meet Albert. We got to take a photo in front of the arch. And, I was lucky enough to be there, got my own photo of Scherzer and Albert in front of the St. Louis arch. And Pujols walks away, and Scherzer's like, oh, that's going on the mantle. Like, just totally turned into, this is a 3-time Cy Young Award winner, totally turning into a fanboy, right? And you heard Nolan Arenado, when he came to St. Louis, talk about, hey, Albert, you're my favorite player. I hope you know you're my favorite player. And I think we kind of forget that, one, these guys are fans, and two, that guys like Pujols have been playing for so long that they really transcend that. This isn't just a veteran player you're bringing in, right? This is an icon. I was in Cardinals camp when Molina came to camp, and that was a huge deal, right? They had a team meeting, they had applause. Guys were just so over the moon to see Molina, who they knew was coming, but he was a late report for personal reasons. I can't even imagine to be a fly on the wall when Albert Pujols walks through those doors. I do think you can't really quantify it. And obviously having the DH universally really opened the door for this to happen. I don't know how much he has left in the tank, but I know what he does to the side, the example he sets, just his presence being there. Like you're a young pitcher, it's the 8th inning, and in steps Albert Pujols. You're kind of in your head a little bit, right? I mean, pitchers and players talk all the time about how they don't really get super like shell shocked or they, but Albert Pujols is different for a lot of players. And I think that has a little bit of a mystique factor, even if he's not the same player, even if he's just only got a little bit left. I think this is such a cool move overall for St. Louis fans, for baseball fans, for anybody who just enjoys nostalgia. This is just awesome.
Yeah, I think it's funny because from like the perspective that I usually have on baseball, which is just, the numbers, the projections, how does this change the team's quality when it comes to, the spreadsheet, whatever. I know they don't play it on the spreadsheet, but that's where I start. And it's a very small move. It's a tiny move in terms of like, this is a guy who's going to platoon DH with Corey Dickerson, and he's going to get the small side of the platoon. But that's not how it felt in camp, right? I mean, they're talking about Molina and like Wainwright hugging Molina when he heard the news, and like, and Molina texting him at 6 a.m, like, "Are you coming to St. Louis?" So, I think that this is a great place for him to finish his career, and actually a really good role for him numbers wise. Like he like walks at above average rate. It's like a 9% walk rate, like 12 to 14% strikeout rate against lefties. He still really has the capability to do some damage against lefties, even though defenders like play him on the outfield grass and it's only doubles and homers and walks for him. I think that he can have an on the field presence that's meaningful for this team. It actually fits. I do feel a little bit bad for Lars Nootbaar, who I trained with a little bit at Driveline. I feel like the Cardinals now, I don't know what they will do for the 4th outfielder, but it may not be Nootbaar because they may want him to get more reps. But in any case, the team really likes this. They seem to really pick up with this, and he does fill a decent role on this team. Kudos all around.
This is an interesting Cardinals team, Britt. I mean, they made the great run in the second half of last season. You and I look very silly when that happened because you called it. And the problem I have with them right now is actually kind of similar to the problem I had with them in the second half of last season before they went on that run. I think they have some of the same flaws, and unfortunately, they're dealing with a Jack Flaherty injury and an Alex Reyes injury. And I think their pitching depth, especially their starting pitching depth, is going to be tested pretty much immediately to begin the season.
Yeah, I think those are good points. And I think when you're an older team like they are, and we've discussed this with the Yankees, you need to stay healthy, right? Wainwright's not young. Pujols isn't young. Molina's not young. You need to stay healthy. And the Flaherty thing, it seems like they haven't really been able to count on him giving them what they need. And without him, they're in my opinion, like you're so much less of a formidable rotation, right? As you said, they don't have that depth. So I think that's important. I think another thing, if the Cardinals do somehow stumble in this playoffs and they get hot, like we saw last year, that's important to remember when you have these 3 veteran guys who are revered in that clubhouse. And this reminds me of the Nationals in 2019. They kind of adopted this whole, like, we're going to win for Ryan Zimmerman because the guy's been here forever. And I think you may see that as a rallying cry if the Cardinals do get in this expanded playoffs, because you can stumble in maybe as a 500 team this year. That wouldn't be surprising. You might be under 500 and stumble in. I could certainly see the Cardinals kind of saying, like, we're winning this for these 3 guys because these 3 guys are done. And that kind of providing maybe that little extra chip, that little extra push that teams need. Like, this isn't just for me. I'm TJ McFarland. I'm gassed. I'm pitching in the 7th inning for the 3rd day in a row. This is for Molina and Wainwright and Pujols. And I don't think people realize what that can maybe do to galvanize a team that's kind of on the brink. And I see the Cardinals, who really came into the winter with not a whole lot of holes overall. They were pretty solid. They needed maybe a late inning reliever. I see a team like the Cardinals that if they stay healthy, they are kind of a team on the brink. They're a team that could contend, but we wouldn't be that surprised if they didn't make the playoffs, right? They're kind of a team on the edge here, and we're trying to see where they fit. Certainly the Reyes injury is also a soul crusher. I mean, they need late inning guys. They need Flaherty, or I don't think they really have a chance, no matter how much nostalgia you can package up.
Yeah, they just signed Aaron Brooks, which kind of seems to be a finger sort of pointing at that issue you're talking about, underlining the pitching depth problem. I'm not trying to speak too poorly of him. I'm just saying, like, they are active. They're trying to do more, add more players, but really without Jack Flaherty, they seem like a team of a bunch of 2s and 5s in the rotation, and they're kind of missing that one. Maybe Waino can be it. That curveball seems ageless, but you still kind of want to have, a Batman and a Robin situation. So maybe they can trade for something in the middle of the season if, by the trade deadline, if they stay in it. But we may have a problem where we have more buyers than sellers at this trade deadline. So just to preview what happens with the expanded playoffs, I feel like you'll have 2 or 3 teams that are, definitively sellers. And so the prices will be driven higher on their assets that they have, the players that they can trade. And so, if they do want to go get John Means or somebody at the deadline, they may have to pay kind of a bucket load for it. So we'll see how it works out for them. Maybe Jack Flaherty is their trade deadline acquisition.
GMs love that so much when the injured guy comes back mid-season and they can just
don't have to pay anything
have
for that
an
guy.
upgrade without giving anything up.
Yeah.
It is the best thing. I mean, Brian Cash. That's on the Brian Cashman bingo card, I think.
They always say it too, like, we got this guy who was on our roster. We think that's a pretty good upgrade at the trade deadline.
Yeah.
Fans are always upset about it.
It's just it's just the
It's
posturing though. It's just to try and not make it seem as urgent as it is to get the help that they need. But pitching and defense were keys there. The park obviously makes the pitching play up. So I think it's easy to look at this team on paper and be underwhelmed. But when you look back how they did it last year, you start thinking about some of the younger players they've got. We could get more from Dylan Carlson. Harrison Bader showed signs of taking steps forward. Maybe Nolan Gorman comes up and makes an impact. And then Paul DeYoung could be a bounce back player. They've got a lot of ways where some of their flaws could be papered over pretty quickly. Maybe they put more runs on the board this year than they did a year ago with some of those possible developments happening in St. Louis. I love that you got a John Means and a Lars Nootbaar in the first 12 minutes. That is very impressive.
Eno's bingo
my guys in there.
Let's move on to the interesting story that Jason Stark had. Second base in the minor leagues. They're going to move in. I think it's just the lower levels, if I remember the story correctly, right? They're going to move second base in, like, toward home plate. I never knew there was anything wrong with the position of second base before. I didn't look at a baseball diamond and have that doesn't look quite right. It always just looked right in my head. So this is one of those things where the first thing my mind went to was, hey, this is another way stolen bases could eventually go up. If this becomes a change that we see across all levels in the future, it's another way to really juice up that part of the game, which has been in a kind of long-term sort of decline for the better part of a decade now. So were there any other takeaways that you guys had from that story? Britt, is there anything that you thought was interesting about the possibility of moving that in at more levels in the future?
Yeah, I thought it was fascinating. I think anytime you're tinkering with the game, there's always, and we've talked about this before, like, you think it's going to do one thing and 10 other things come with it. So my first thought was like, all right, what happens here? Does it change how we value catchers? Does it change how we value arm strength? How in the middle of the infield? What about double plays? Teams that are slow to turn double plays, teams that are fast to turn double plays, right? Like, this has such a big impact. And we've talked before about making the bases bigger, right? Like, making it easier to get from first to second and kind of the ripple effects there. And I think this is a similar thing where you're going to see some interesting ripple effects. So that was kind of how my mind worked, was, okay, how is this going to change the game in a way we don't expect? Because it seems like every time a new rule is introduced, it changes the game in a way that few of us expect. So that's kind of what I took away from reading that. Also, it's such a Jason Stark story, right? He's so great at presenting like what can be a boring topic at times, and he breaks it down, and has this conversational tone where you feel like you're having a chat with Jason Stark
Makes it
every
exciting
time.
too.
Yeah,
Definitely
every
makes
time
it
you read one of
exciting.
his columns, like he's like got exclamation points and little subheaders, and you're like,
Yeah.
man, this guy could like rewrite the encyclopedia, and I would just read it. Like, he's just terrific.
Yeah.
If you were going to reread the encyclopedias, which volume would you pick up first?
Ooh, I don't, maybe like if Jason Stark's writing it, something like X, right? Because he's going to be like X-ray and like X. I don't know. I now can't think of any other X words, but
Yeah,
Xerox,
yeah.
xylophone, and he's just going to be all excited about it. So I think X.
It's interesting when something like this happens, and there's, some part of me even, and so I'm not trying to, put people in a box, but like there's a group that says they don't like it. They don't like to change the sort of basic facts of the game. But when he drew that diagram of where second base is, you're kind of like, whoa, this is weird. Like, this isn't how it was supposed to be. Like, for first and third, we measured the base path from the tip of the back of the base, back of home plate, to the back of the base. So if you drew a diamond, the bases are completely within the corners of the diamond. But second base, for some reason, we measure it to the middle of the bag. And so you have this one base that's just hanging out there that's like half in, half out of this diamond we've created, And so all these notions we have of like the 90 feet is perfect, or even like 60 feet 6 inches is perfect. Well, dude, we've changed that. Like it hasn't always been 60 feet 6 inches. Second base hasn't always been where it is. So let's change it back, and maybe that'll do some good things for the game. And also, I did a piece with Andrew Baggerly about, there it is. Look at that second base. Once Jason said it, when he first said it, I was like, I don't see it. It was like a Rorschach test where I'm like, I don't know what he's talking about. And then when I saw it, I was like, oh my God, what is second base doing like that?
Yeah, great point. You can't unsee it now. You're like, second base is out of order. It's just hanging.
Why is that not in the diamond?
Great little ad there, Derek. If you're not watching on YouTube, you should be. And sorry that I don't have a ring
good
light.
To have the visual there. But and then I did a piece with Baggerly about how stolen bases are actually, teams are more efficient than they've ever been in the history of baseball. They are more successful at stealing second base than they've ever been, and that's because they've engineered it. And like Stark mentioned this in the piece, like they know exactly what how the pop time of the catcher. They know exactly what the pitcher's time is to the plate. And if those two times don't add up to the player on first with his ability to get to second, then they say go, and now they're successful like 78% of the time. Break even is like, 68. So like they figured it out how to be successful on the base paths. If you change it by an inch or something, you will change that math. And there will be stolen bases. There will be more stolen bases, like 100%. But I do love that Britt mentioned these other things. Like there is the stuff that we don't know, like what will the effect be on defense? What will the effect be on singles and doubles? Will there be a bunch of more new doubles because of 3 inches? Maybe, maybe not. It all depends on how many close plays there are. Usually I think you see a guy, slide into second, no throw. I would say that's like right on a double, like not that often. It's like a bang bang play at second.
Yeah, unless they're trying to stretch a single, like they're just a fast guy trying to stretch a single.
But so there might be more of those, but it might not be that many. Yeah, but there might not be that many because that doesn't happen that often. Ozzie Albies takes those big turns, every once in a while he turns and he ends up on second. That'll happen a little bit more often. That's exciting though. It's still an exciting play, and a stolen base is an exciting play. So these are exciting plays that'll happen more often, and the sort of boring kind of ground rule double type stuff won't really change that much.
Yeah, that's true. You're right. We're not all of a sudden going to see Albert Pujols stretching a single into a double because of this move. But a Trey Turner, like it could matter for guys that have. And if you've ever talked to like either of you, like an elite base stealer, Eno's right. It is not just like, oh, I go when I feel like it. It is down to a science now
Yeah.
versus like 10, 12 years ago when I got into the game and there was like Michael Bourne and Carl Crawford and everything was more based off of feel. We just didn't have those numbers now. You talk to these elite base dealers and everything is plotted out. They do not like to miss, right? When they go, they want to go. And I'd be surprised. Yeah, exactly. It just seems like those percentages keep climbing. And that's why you don't see a lot of guys even attempt it anymore. It's like a small group of base dealers that are still left in the game that are very good at it.
Oh, yeah. You're talking to some fantasy baseball players here. Stolen bases are scarce. They're hard to find.
We will draft very average or below average players at inflated prices for the possibility of 20 stolen bases. So that's exactly why this was where my heart was as soon as I saw it. I'm like, more steals. But you're right to point out the other issues that might come up as a result. This is the problem with changing any rules.
More triples, though. I think triples are the most exciting.
Triples are the best.
Game. God, I love triples.
So they're the best. You guys, totally off topic, but not that off topic. Should I play fantasy baseball this year? I've never played. I realize who I'm talking to.
Yeah,
you should.
Should I? Because I'm gonna have a little more time to kill because I'm gonna be on maternity leave later this summer, and then also I feel like maybe I should play. But the cardinal rule though is you don't talk about your fantasy team.
Yeah.
In the clubhouse.
That's true.
No,
yeah. I once asked Dexter Fowler why he didn't steal more bases for my fantasy team. That went poorly.
Yeah, that's
how
a
was
no.
that question received?
Yeah.
You can talk to players in the clubhouse about fantasy football, like fantasy football. They're into that. They love that.
They love
a great league in every clubhouse.
Yeah, I had an intern one year when I was covering the Orioles, and he was like, Matt Wieters. First time he walks into the clubhouse and sees Wieters, he's like, "You're on my fantasy team." And Wieters just like kept walking, didn't even acknowledge him, nothing. No. Like, so yeah, like I will play and I will talk about it and nerd out with you guys if I do on the show, but they will never mention it.
Yeah, Dexter Fowler was nice enough that we ended up having an actual interview about, why he didn't steal more bases. But the look on his face when I said that first,
correct,
I knew that it went poorly.
It's a no-go.
The intern that was working with Britt, like I'm sure at that age I could have easily made a gaffe like that. Like I have no doubt in my mind that I was capable of misfiring that badly. But I'm trying to think back to, the situation we were talking about earlier in the show with Pujols and people being just kind of in awe. I have had those moments since joining the Athletic 3 years ago where you join a Zoom call, like a big company call, and you see a person you've watched on TV for 20 years, right? It's like David Aldridge, or the first time like I got to talk to Ken Rosenthal on a podcast. It was kind of surreal. It was like, wait a minute, like you're over there. Like what am I doing here? And you just think it's not an actual real life moment. Fortunately, those moments have happened in my 30s, so I've just calmly been like, all right, this is cool, and just got through it. But at 22, I would have had the holy crap, it's Ken Rosenthal, it's David Aldridge right there. So I understand where that comes from, and I'm glad that as I've aged, it's calmed down a little bit to a more socially acceptable sort of level.
Yes. Have you ever geeked out over a player in the clubhouse, like externally?
Oh, I don't think so.
No. In your mind, have you? I've definitely in my mind. There's been a couple. Derek Jeter, when I covered the Yankees in 2009. And a little voice in my head, I'm from Connecticut, was like, this is Derek Jeter that you're talking to. Like, stay cool. Stay cool. And then Cal Ripken. So.
I was pretty excited. I think the first time I talked to Zach Greinke, I was pretty excited because, like, he's a pitching nerd and I'm a pitching nerd. Yeah. And so I thought I was excited for the conversation, not like, oh my God, Zach Greinke, but more like, oh my God, I got to talk to Zach Greinke. Like, yeah. This is what I wanted to do for my career. So like, I'm finally doing it, not so much like, oh my God, can I speak to Zach Greinke? I did have that problem in college. And it's funny you mentioned age. In college, I was an arts and events writer. And I got to meet and interview Del the Funky Homo Sapien. And it went really, really badly. And it went really badly because I was kind of like, oh my God, Del. And he was like, who is this joker? And he kind of ignored me. He ignored me. And I was like trying to ask him questions for the
Ooh.
Stanford Daily, and
Oh no.
it was so crash and burn and hurt me pretty hard. So that's funny too, because some people are listening are like, who's Del the Funky Homo Sapien?
I also would like to know. Yeah. So I do think you age out of that. And again, like the players I geeked out over are much older. They're not like the generation, like Cal Ripken Jr. coming to Orioles camp. Like you're like, oh my God, that's Cal Ripken Jr. Like externally, I was fine, but internally in my head, I'm like, be cool, Brittany, be very cool.
Okay. John Smoltz, I got him on my podcast. I got him on my podcast, and I grew up in Atlanta.
Another
Yeah,
one. Yeah.
I had a little bit of that. But then it was like a podcast, and I wasn't like standing in front of him, so we were just like, let's go.
Yeah. But no fantasy talk anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, not in the clubhouse. Yeah, I've spent 0 days in the clubhouse, but I know not to talk about my fantasy teams on day one. if I ever find myself in one. So we've got a really exciting thing that's back for the second season. The Nike City Connect jerseys are back. The Nationals announced or revealed what theirs look like. They're on the screen if you're watching us on YouTube right now, covering up all of our faces. And these are great. These are amazing. So
am I allowed to have 3 points of critique?
You are, but I want to describe them for the people who are listening, since this is mostly an audio show.
Okay, I'll do it. Like, so I do like these. They are gray. They're sort of like a light gray. It's very rare that I like a light gray jersey. So I do like them despite, because they have the pink cherry blossoms on them. I do like that. I think the WSH across the front should be in a curly font. I think there's a little bit of a weird sort of block letter with the blooms contrast there, but I do like them generally. And I like these. I like this approach because these are different jerseys, and they're not like the whole, like, remember the whole like future, what was the thing that they did, like the turn forward the clock day or something that they used to do, where everyone was
an
wearing
all-star game thing, right?
Yeah, those were pretty bad. These, I think, range. Some are better and some are worse, but like I think that they're really interesting takes, and thinking outside the box and not just the same old jersey we've been looking at forever. So despite it being gray and the block letters, I like this.
All right, Britt, your thoughts?
I mean, I'm 100% gonna at least buy the hat. I think they're awesome, and I'm not even a uniform person. I own 0 big league hats. I think what they did a great job of, and like what City Connect is supposed to be, right? And when it works, it does this really well, is it embodies the city. And we live about half an hour from DC, and the cherry blossoms are such a big deal. I mean, the traffic is otherworldly around this time because people want to go to see these cherry blossoms. And when they're in bloom, they're terrific and they're everywhere. And it's a big part of Washington, D.C., of springtime in Washington, D.C. And the Nats did a great video kind of talking about, how it parallels this long winter that you get through with no baseball, and it's cold, and then the cherry blossoms come out and it's time for baseball again. And I just thought it was a really cool parallel, and it's kind of a really cool meaning to incorporate the cherry blossoms, because they could have done something with the Capitol, right? And it just would have been tired, something else with DC, to kind of go above and beyond the obvious for most people, and tie this in, and to get away with pink and gray as a jersey and have people like it this much. I mean, I call this a win, even though, as you said, I do think maybe the lettering, now that you said it, could improve on the jersey. I like the block W on the hat a lot. People are upset that it doesn't say Nationals on it. It says Washington. To me, that's the whole point of City Connect, right? Is you're connecting with the city. I don't have a problem with that. I think this is a really, really awesome jersey.
So we have a few more teams coming later this season. I've got on the screen right now the 2021. You might remember the Red Sox wearing yellow jerseys for a point, or the White Sox black,
kind of fun, like
white
the marathon.
The Miami,
the Dodgers one,
best.
I thought Miami's awesome, and I've seen that like on people live, and I even talked to them about it because I was just like, that's pretty cool. And we talked about why Miami. It was because it's in Oakland, but the Dodgers one, I think, took the fewest risks.
Yep. That Dodgers one is basically just a new thing in the script. It just
the White Sox too. I mean, I like the different colors. Like, I like what Miami did. I like what Boston did. Like, get out of your comfort zone, experiment a little bit. Wrigleyville wasn't bad, but
I
don't
just
know.
love the South Side. Like, I don't know. I love the like
Do
white
you?
on black pinstripe. I don't know, something about it.
But to
I
me,
think
like
it's
it
pretty
is still
cool.
very like immediately you're like, if you can't read that, like if you stand far away, you know that's White Sox, right?
Right.
If you stand real
Anyway,
far
right.
away, you're not necessarily like, oh, yellow, that's gotta be Boston, right? If you can't read the Boston. Same thing with
I
Miami.
like.
I think I
Yeah.
like the riskier ones.
Yeah. I
I
think so
think
too.
I
Right. The Dodgers one just seems like whatever.
I think the Giants one fell flat last year. Remember the white jerseys
Yeah.
with the orange gradient that
But it does
faded
have the
down to white?
fog. It does have like the fog thing going on, and that orange
Uh,
is very noticeable. It's very. It
Should have
pops.
yeah. Should have been maybe an orange jersey, don't you guys think? Like
I
that
think
orange would
Oh,
have been
maybe
kind of
and
cool.
fog in white on top of it.
Yeah, that would have been a little cooler.
I
That
would have
might have
had
been
the
cooler.
bridge going across the chest of the jersey with the fog. I think that would have been a cooler effect. And I think then having the numbers and everything else popping the way they normally do would have been good. And I think
Yeah.
of this because if you've ever been in a press box and you've ever had to even from a distance try and track what's happening on the field, baseball's different. Baseball's slow.
Put names on the back of the jerseys, please.
Names and
Yeah.
numbers need to be clear when you're trying to do
Yeah.
work in a pro sporting context. So of all the jerseys on the screen right now, no one wants to talk about the Arizona Diamondbacks kind of soft Vegas gold. I guess I would describe that color. It's not like shimmering, but it's
It's like
kind of
desert.
pale.
It
Too desert.
looks like what happened in college when all of my whites got rust on them. Like, that's literally what.
What is with that franchise? Like they're great. Like,
Yeah, because their uniforms are the
gray.
ones you can't watch, you can't read. They're the ones that have the numbers you can't read because they're like gray on
Ugh.
gray.
Well, and their gray, that charcoal gray they were using, that just looked wet. It just looked like everybody was
Yeah.
sweating a lot. And I thought that looked
Yeah.
really weird. So why do we care about these jerseys? Because this stuff's cool. Because I think, especially for a team like the Nationals, relatively new team, of course, their look, I think, was just a kind of generic traditional baseball look. It is not bad.
Yeah.
I don't think their uniforms look bad in any way, but I just think they're so safe in terms of how they were designed that they didn't take a chance. Like a lot of the other new franchises that have been created in the last, let's say 30 years now, going back to when the Rockies and Marlins joined the league, they had bright, flashy colors. They had something unique about the logo, about the way the jersey was made that made you, even if you lived nowhere near that place, you kind of wanted that merch, especially as a
I
kid.
bought a big purple Colorado Rockies starter jacket.
Exactly.
Amazing.
Right.
Oh, remember when starter jackets were the thing? Oh, I
Yeah.
had I had a Boston Bruins one. Oh man, I love starter jackets.
I had a Miami Hurricane starter jacket, and I have a lot of questions for my parents about that now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty weird. I have no real connection to Colorado at the time. I was living in Atlanta and going to school in Boston.
Super interesting.
I think I was winning as a result of the clearance rack in that instance. If I had to guess,
I think
what
it
the
might have been the
situation was.
Burlington Coat Factory.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Oh, those were the days. Like I think we went to Sports Authority a lot, and they always had them on sale in the back. Remember Sports Authorities?
I thought Starter was going to make a comeback a few years ago, but it was for
Instead,
naught.
Zubaz did.
Alas.
I can't believe Zubas came back. Let's talk about the humidors for a moment. All 30 parks are going to use them. We get into this a little bit on rates and barrels, and I think in the way you have broken this down, it seems like the impact is going to be in the more extreme environments that weren't previously using a humidor, especially the West Coast parks, right? I think you mentioned the Giants at Oracle Park, the A's at the Coliseum, and the Padres at Petco, because of the atmospheric conditions in those parks that we might see the greatest change, where all three of those parks could play more hitter friendly as a result of this change.
Yeah, it's a little bit tough, I think, judging from my Twitter feed, for people to jump this. There's like a little bit of mental hurdle here. We think of humidity as like mugginess. So it's like hot. And there is a scientific thing going on where the hotter the temperature is, the more actual water vapor is in the air, because the hotter the temperature is, the more water it can hold. But I think, and I'm pretty sure this is true, the actual metric we care about is relative humidity, which is given the temperature that you've got, how much water is in the air. And the reason that matters, why I think it's right, is because we've modeled what happened in Arizona and Denver when they added humidors, and we used relative humidity when we did that. and we entirely predicted what would happen, which is that homers went down about 13% in Colorado, and they went down 20% in Arizona because they're super dry. Now all the super dry parks have humidors. Now it's the super wet parks where the humidor will actually pull water out of the balls, because humidors are not always about making something more humid. Humidors are about setting a certain humidity, and everything that's in that is always that humidity. So the most humid parks with relative humidity are Petco, Oracle, Oakland, and Progressive. And the reason those is because they're kind of cooler parks near water. And that's they have a ton of water in the air. Those are places you see fog. Those are places that there's just a ton of water in the air because the water's right there. Those places are going to see an 8 to 13%, depending on which park we're talking about, increase in home runs. So that is a non-significant. That's a significant amount of homers when you talk about the park. When it talks about players, you're talking about 2-3 homers maybe per player per slugger that they might see more.
So places that are really humid, like Baltimore, that are already hitter friendly, where the ball flies out, how does that change things, if at all?
Yeah, it didn't show up in the top 5 when it comes to relative humidity. So I think that's just one of those places where there's a lot of water in the air because it's hot, So I don't think it'll change Baltimore too much. I really think it'll affect the cold, humid parks the most.
Interesting. Though Baltimore, of course, moved the fences in, so they're in for a very abnormal year. Anyway,
Fences
we're
out.
not. Fences out. I'm sorry. So they're in for
Right.
kind
So
of
there's
a
a lot of
weird.
things going in different directions. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I was trying to look at Arizona, and the first year Arizona did it was 2018. So I just used that. If you look at 2019, there was the rabbit ball. That was the ball.
Yeah.
That was the year where we broke all the home run years. So I didn't want to compare 2019 Arizona to pre-humidor Arizona. So you have to make assumptions, and a lot of this is sort of guesswork. But the last couple of times they guessed at what Denver would do, and they guessed at what Arizona would do, and they were correct. I'm talking about like Professor Alan Nathan, who's worked with baseball. He did a piece on this. Professor David Kagan did a piece on this. They predicted a certain amount, and they were right. So I think relative humidity is the number, and using sort of modeling after what they did, we're talking about like a 10% increase in homers in Petco and sort of a 7 to 9% increase in San Francisco, Oakland, and Cleveland.
And we know the ball won't change this year. MLB has said the ball won't change this year. They've told the players the ball won't change.
Hopefully it's just that one ball they want, the new ball.
Yeah, so hopefully that all stays the same. I know I think last week there was a report of like a stickier rosin being introduced, but I was told over the weekend that it's nothing new. It's too late for any of this stuff to get ushered in because they would have had to
stricter enforcement of the sticky stuff rule.
Correct. They would have had to indoctrinate this in spring training. There simply wasn't enough time for that kind of stuff. So you're not going to see any.
So there's no pre-tack ball. There's no
No.
Just affirmative. No pre-tack ball. No.
Correct. No like stickier rosin. Like you're not going to see any.
No
of that
help
stuff.
for the pitchers. Just the stick. The stick is coming harder this year.
The stick is coming harder, or so they say, anyway.
Right.
But pitchers can. Or MLB did propose. I don't know yet if the union's going to accept it, that they can use those pitch comm devices. Like the sign stealing thing is going to become a bigger crackdown, which I didn't see anyone. Maybe Greinke used it in a game, right? Like those devices.
I think so.
I don't know how I feel about those.
I'm worried that it creates a new arms race where like people are jamming their other, you know what I'm saying? Like you could have a Bluetooth jammer, right? Where you could jam their thing, or you could try to like hack it. You could just have a hacker who's like, who just has it.
Yeah, I love like all the different reactions that like Greinke uses it in a game, and I'm reading about like it came to Mets camp one day, and it's like a bunch of guys are like, "Oh, I got to get used to it, or I'll try it," and then Scherzer's like, "No, hate it, won't use it." Okay.
These things take time when they're. That
guy's a national treasure.
Theoretically, I like it because theoretically it would create like we wouldn't have an Astros type situation. But I just worry that we would have a new Astros type situation where they have someone who's hacked into the feed, just straight getting the signals.
And I guess I thought like wrongly that like it would flash like a Fitbit, like fastball, but it actually says fastball. So
so somebody could hear it.
What?
Right, like I think it was Brian McCann that said this in the article I was just referencing. That was like, hey, what if it's really quiet, or like if I have trouble hearing and I have to turn it up?
Hear it.
Yeah, or the guy at the plate can hear it, right? Like Brian McCann's thing is going like fastball. Like, I guess I don't understand. Like everybody can read, everyone is capable of reading in the big leagues. Why wouldn't it just flash a number or flash? That would be the best way to do it, right? Even if a team jammed it, instead of like have a number.
They'd still have to break the numbers. They'd have to still break some code. But instead of it would actually speed up games a little bit, because what we see now are pitchers have different codes in their hats, right? And they have to take their hats off. Have you seen this during games? They take their hats off and check what code line. And they're like, okay, we're on the third code line. And then the catcher has to be like, okay, the third code line means this. And then he throws the signals down. And then sometimes the pitcher will even have to be, man, what is he doing? And he has to look back at the card and be like, oh, okay.
It's the Da Vinci Code. It's also changed the way that I take off my hat. So when I take off a hat, I kind of glance inside just to see if someone has put a note in there for me. Because I've seen so many grown men take off a hat and look inside it from watching games.
That's amazing.
What are you looking for? There's nothing in there. There's no card. There's no message.
Oh, that's awesome. Hilarious. That's awesome. I love it.
I have problems. Speaking of Arizona, they were mentioned in passing, both in the City Connect and just in that little conversation right there. They gave Ketel Marte an extension, 5 years, $76 million. And I think they're just one of those teams that we almost never talk about on this pod because, well, they exist in the NL West, and they're not the Dodgers, they're not the Padres, and they're not the Giants. And they don't seem to be as clueless as the Rockies, so they don't get the attention for the wrong reasons. They're just there. They just exist. They're just this franchise that doesn't seem like it has a clear-cut like future in the postseason because of the division they play in. They've got young talent coming up. They just extended one of their best players. This kind of blew me away as I was digging around looking for some stuff about the D-backs for this year. They have the worst projected starting rotation in the big leagues, which doesn't seem right to me. That seems almost impossible because I think Zach Gallen could be good.
And signed guys,
Right. Really? They brought in Brett Strom as their pitching coach. So you've got Gallen, you've got Bumgarner who you signed, Merrill Kelly's having a nice spring. Luke Weaver, to me, there's still a possibility he could be good if he's a number 4 starter. That's fine. Yeah. They just brought in Zach Davies for innings. They still have Corbin Martin. They got Dan Straley coming back from overseas. Like, I'd be stunned if this ended up being the worst rotation in baseball. So I'm curious if you have any other Arizona-related thoughts, either this rotation not being as bad as projections say, being excited they at least extended Ketel Marte, maybe there's some prospects you like, but they are probably the most ignored team in the National League right now, if not maybe the entire league.
Yeah, that's true. You know what I like about them is they like kind of tried this winter, and people were like, "Oh, Arizona's trying." Like remember they signed Mark Melancon, and I think they did something else, and people were like, "Oh, Arizona, okay." I remember on this podcast we were like, "Cool." Didn't think they were going to do anything, but all right, cool. That's kind of how I feel about them. They're probably the team I know the least about, which is kind of unfortunate, I guess. But I am curious to see what Strom does there after years and years of kind of being the guy credited with doing what he's done in Houston, right? Like, and conversely, how does Houston do without Brett Strom, right? Maybe they are. How can they possibly be the worst rotation? Are they basing it off of, okay, also they're going to have to face the Dodgers a million times and they're just going to crush, right? The Padres, who, pick up Luke Voigt, are hoping to get back and be like the Slam Diego Padres again, right? They're facing the Giants. Like, is that also a product of the division? But if so, are the Orioles on that list? Because I feel like they're also in a division where
the Orioles are probably 29th.
Yeah,
the 27th somehow.
27th? Wow.
I can't believe it. I have no idea how that's possible.
Who else is at the bottom of this tier, Derek?
The Rangers and the Pirates are sandwiched in there. And they're all... To be fair, these are all very sketchy rotations. The Nats round out the bottom 5, by the way.
Yeah,
which is
my bold prediction was that the Nats would be the worst.
I saw that. Yeah. Did you get a lot of hate for saying that the Nats can't develop anybody?
I did not.
You didn't get an angry phone call from Mike Rizzo? Oh,
No,
those are a treasured pastime on the Nets.
he does not have my number. I guess that's a
I'm
good
gonna
thing
give
now.
it to him when I see him.
Oh, thanks. No, I think that the Diamondbacks are the team that we talk about that like tries to win 86 every year, or tried to build an 86 win team every year, and then hopes that it turns into 90 and they get into the playoffs. I don't think that they have enough money to do much more than that. And then they also have, I think, a little bit of a fatal flaw in terms of the fandom, which is they haven't been around long enough. It's not like Denver, where I didn't know this, but Denver apparently is like top 5 in attendance every year. The Rockies.
It's a cool stadium. It's a cool city. I mean,
Yeah,
people like to drink
and I
beer
think
there.
and people go there in the summer, so I think it's like a thing you do when you go there in the summer. I don't think that Phoenix has that, and then they also don't have the Diamondbacks were my grandfather's team.
Mm-hmm.
Where if you look at the Reds struggle a lot, but Reds readership, like we are uniquely tuned to this as national writers. We know when we write about a certain fan base exactly how many people read it and exactly how big the fan base is. If you can write about the Reds even when they're bad, and their piece will do well because I don't know that they've been there forever. The Reds aren't like one of the first teams. So like they've just
They're some of the original, but you're right. I
Yeah.
crushed them once, and man, did I get mean, nasty comments for days.
Yeah. So you get, but like in Phoenix, you just don't have that readership. So that leads to not paying attention, and the national media not paying attention. I don't think it's like East Coast, West Coast bias. Like the national media pays attention to where the people care the most. They write about the Dodgers, and the Padres fandom is actually pretty fervent and rabid. So like, remember when everyone was excited, even nationally, about the Padres last year at the beginning in spring training, right this time. So like, just Arizona doesn't have any of that going for it. And, I think that they could pop one year, and then I'll have to write like, sorry, pieces. Sorry, we should have been paying attention. But the Marte piece, the last thing is the Marte extension is like Byron Buxton extension to me. It's below market, but the reason it's below market is because he's had a real hard time staying healthy. So I think it's a little bit like in the years where he's healthy, that's going to be an incredible value for the Diamondbacks. But for the player, he's like, yeah, I have to acknowledge I've had some trouble staying healthy.
Yeah. And they could still trade him. It's not a contract that it's like, oh man, can't trade this guy. They could still trade him.
He can still play center field, and he's really good offensively.
It might not matter in terms of actually getting them into the postseason this year, but I do think building at least a competent A bullpen. Ian Kennedy's the setup guy. He was the other kind of veteran. It was like, oh, he went to Arizona. Kennedy and Melanson, plus some combo of JB Wendelken. Maybe Noe Ramirez is a good sneaky addition there too. They get bulk from the rotation. Someone pops there. They have prospects. Corbin Carroll, if he hadn't been hurt last year, would probably
Alec
be debuting
Thomas,
early
I really
this year.
like.
Thomas is definitely up this year. Jordan Lawler eventually contributes. He's not coming up this year. Geraldo
Seth
Perdomo
Beer will get a chance
shortstop
this year.
They got
Beer
some pitching.
at DH.
You get Dre Jamison, Blake Walston. So you have some interesting players that are very close to the big leagues there, and they could end up being more of a thorn in the side of the other NL West teams than people realize. Which I know that's not a tagline for a poster that's going to get you to.
It's not a very bold prediction.
Watch the
D-backs a little better than you think.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Put that on a sweatshirt.
This is not a bold prediction, but this is a slightly better team than people are giving them credit for.
Those spring training shirts, so they always have like some slogan,
Yeah. I mean,
I think we're a little better than you think.
A little better than you think. I mean, not gonna lie, the three of us should wear those sweatshirts on air. Like, the podcast is a little better than you think. We're a little
better. Show a little better than you think.
It's not going to the postseason, but we might flirt with 500 into August.
Totally.
I want to see Seth Beer hit. And I also want to see Seth Beer play for the Brewers.
I like
someday.
beer.
I like beer. Right. I think people could rally around Seth Beer for that exact reason.
Yeah. Yeah, you could have some good shirts for that.
There's some great names there. Did you guys see the pitcher in Anaheim? His last name is Junk, and he's a pitcher. Like, there's some great names. I think it's like Jansen Junk. Jansen Junk. That's it. Yes.
I was like,
he throws 84.
Was it Josh Outman?
Yep, Josh Outman.
Yep.
Bob Walker from when we were kids.
God, some good ones.
Trying to think of other great baseball names.
Yeah, like especially if you're a pitcher, like like Outman, Junk, like just having a last name that kind of goes with the pitching, like the headlines write themselves.
Yeah, we need a pitching prospect named Stuff. What would the first name be?
Oh, Stuff.
Spencer Stuff.
Spencer Stuff.
Amazing.
Spencer
It's not
Stuff
like
pitched in the
Spencer
SEC.
Strider in Atlanta has really great stuff numbers.
And I
and a great
immediately
mustache,
said,
too.
we're putting Spencer Stuff on an SEC school, and then, he's going to come in, be kind of
the Stuff plus.
elite stuff guy,
the
no
Stuff.
command. Oh, it's going to be
Amazing.
just wonderful. Wow, we covered a lot of ground already with mostly nonsense. Eno had some bold predictions.
Hey, we're better than you think.
Yeah, right. The 3-0 show, mostly nonsense.
Mostly nonsense. That's what I'm going to title this episode. Mostly nonsense.
The Diamondbacks of podcasts.
Here we go. Eno's 10 bold predictions for a wacky 2022 MLB season. I'm not going to read all 10. I think you should have a subscription to The Athletic, which you can get for $1 a month at theathletic.com/baseball show.
Tagged.
But I'm going to pick a few of these, and I want Britt to grade them on their boldness on a 1 to 5 scale.
I
One
already
being
this is the hardest
mentally
part.
judged you.
The hardest part of bold predictions is getting this part right. So you have peered into my soul already, Derek Van Riper.
1 to 5 is the scale. So 1 being not very
It's
bold.
not even
and
how
5,
good these predictions are.
Oh,
just how
it isn't?
bold
All
they
right.
are.
I already judged him when I read the story and was like, that one I like. No. Yeah, that one.
All right. I think this one's pretty fun.
All
so
right.
I'm going to start us with this one. Joey Votto will hit 40 homers for the first time in his career at age 38.
That was insanely bold. So it's a 5, right? The most bold
Full
is
on
a 5.
5. Okay.
Full on
Thank
5.
you.
5 out of
Joey
5.
Votto said it's not that bold, dude, but this is Joey Votto.
That's because he's Joey Votto. He thinks he can hit 100.
He was
He's
playing
using
you a
some
little bit.
lightsaber bat, according to C. Trent, which if you're listening,
That's
definitely read
right.
that story that C. Trent wrote about it yesterday.
But he's old and he's never done it.
That's like saying exactly. But here's the thing: these guys have to believe they can do crazy things, or they wouldn't be in the big leagues. You have to remember that, So hit me with the
Well, I'm
next
glad
one.
you thought it was
I got
bold.
that one.
Thank
What
you.
would
I got
the
you.
scale be for boldness? Would it be like tubs of ranch dressing? No, it's not bold.
Like spice, like
hot
spicy,
sauce?
like bold, like hot sauce.
Like Frank's Red
Oh,
Hot
the-
Sauce. Yeah,
Yeah,
so 5
the
bottles of
ghost
sauce
pepper.
on this one.
Ghost pepper.
Ghost
Yeah.
pepper sauce. Okay, let's come up with another one here. That one's not bold, so I'm just going to move right on past that one.
No, you got to give me a 1 on one of them.
Oh, all right. The Rays
What
will
was-
have the best pitching staff
Yeah.
in baseball.
I saw that one and
Not
said,
bold.
"Thanks for going on a ledge."
Oh, damn.
Now, we might have a preconceived understanding of how much you like them that makes that seem less bold to Britt and
It's
I
less
than it
bold
seems
for
to
me.
everybody else.
I think
Right.
anyone who's a baseball fan, it's like saying the Rays will be better than we expect.
Okay.
So are we saying one hot sauce here?
That's a 1 hot sauce.
What
maybe
is the
0
one?
hot
What
sauce.
is the one of hot sauces? It's like the
mild.
Taco Bell mild package.
The mild?
Yep.
Yeah.
Taco Bell mild. I haven't been to Taco Bell in a long time. Do they
All
have
right,
new sauces?
I've never eaten Taco
now
Bell.
that you live in California, please don't ever go.
Oh, I have no intention
There's
of ever
no
going to Taco
reason.
Bell again.
That's my random fact. I'm from a town with no chains, so I've never had Taco Bell. I've never had KFC. I've never had Pizza Hut.
Never.
Never, not even college. That's impressive.
No.
Wow.
We had other drunk places to eat at in college. Yeah.
Fair.
Like
I know.
local junk places,
Like local
Culver's
places.
or
Dude.
something.
Like Menas, and they had like dubs. And they were basically like big burritos that were just like gut bombs. And you went to bed like, why did I eat all that?
Yeah, nice. Yeah, sounds like college. I remember that.
That kind of stuff. Hit me with a hard one now. Maybe it'll be
All right. I think this one's pretty good. Logan Gilbert has the best season of any Mariner starting pitcher.
Okay. Yeah, this is one of the ones that I was like, okay, I wouldn't have picked it as a bold prediction.
I mean, the main,
the
like,
main
throw too much
person
on
we're
it.
talking about,
Robbie Ray. It's basically outperforming Robbie Ray.
Robbie
I think
Ray,
that's the
yes.
bold part of it. The guy that got the big contract. Logan Gilbert's going to be better than Robbie Ray is more or less what Eno's saying here.
I think that's bold. I don't think that's
Right.
Joey Votto bold. I would say it's probably a 3.5 hot sauces bold.
All right in the middle.
All right,
Okay.
right in the middle of the scale. Let's try one more before we go. I don't want to throw that one out there because I think that's just going to happen. And okay, this one's pretty bold. Nate Lowe hits 30 homers.
Yeah, that was another one.
Right.
Yeah.
I threw some boldness in there for y'all. I like
that one had a little zest. I'm gonna go with
All
4
right, good.
on that one.
Well,
I'm
see,
gonna go with 4.
the 4? All
Little
right,
zest.
all right.
Little
Four's good.
zest.
Four's a good score on the boldness. I mean, his team
Yeah.
last year played 157 games, so that's a pretty big step forward. A 54.5% ground ball rate. It takes some changes to get to that 30 home run level, especially in that ballpark.
Agreed.
That's
Is
true.
it bold? Do you guys think for Albert Pujols to reach the 700 homers? He's not that far away, but he also hasn't hit that many homers.
26.
Where do you?
Needs
So where do you?
26 to get there?
Yeah. So where do you put that on the spike? I mean, I know
I
this
think that's
just
bold.
happened.
I would say
That's
that's
probably
bold.
4 out of 5.
It's bold, right?
At least.
It's
Is that
bold.
yours?
Yeah, I think it's spicy. I think he does it.
Wow, that means
that's
he
my bold
like pushes
prediction.
Corey Dickerson off of DH a little bit. I like it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's very bold. I just don't think the playing time is going to be there.
I think he's coming back with a few things
He
in
hit
mind, and if you don't think that's
17.
one of them,
yes, 100%. And he hit 17 last year, so
he's going to hit
just take the
26
playing
with like
time.
250 plate appearances.
well,
No, I mean
he
he'd
doesn't
have to.
have to
He'd
play a
have to.
field really if he doesn't want to. They could save him
Yeah,
a
he'd have to
little.
push the guy off.
Yeah.
He hit 17 in 296 plate appearances last season. It's not impossible.
He would need like 400.
It's bold. It's bold.
Yeah, I like it. That's bold. It's spicy.
Thank you.
The thing with bold prediction is I need to write something. So I want to have some sort of thinking process behind it. I'm not just like, hey, that dude there is going to be amazing. Like Tyro Estrada is going to hit 35 homers. Like I have nothing to write about then. I'd just be like, because I said so. So the thing is to like trying to
I like it.
something that has something behind it. And then I also want to get 3 out of 10 right. So I don't want to go 0 for 10.
So you do some
gimmies.
gimmies.
3 out of 10.
Like the Rays
I
are
do
gonna be
sometimes throw. I think the Rays one was a little bit of a okay. I think I get this one right.
That was your layup.
Yeah, maybe for
one
next
layup.
week. Maybe for next week we do some bold ones of our own. Can pick some different ones, but that would be kind of fun.
I can
Toss
rate
them around
you
before
guys.
the season starts.
Yes,
rate how bold you guys are.
We will have some bold predictions.
Souls.
And I realize that the plight of being a writer, you can't just be this little hot take machine on a podcast and fire your takes into Twitter and just run away like, well, my job here is done. I have that luxury. You two do not. That is going to do it for this episode of the 3-0 show. Yes, he's going to leave.
Later, fools.
As I said earlier, $1 a month gets you in the door at theathletic.com/baseball show. So be sure to get a subscription if you don't already have one. Find Britt on Twitter at Britt_Giroli. You can find Eno on Twitter at Eno Saris. You can find me at Derek Van Riper. The Athletic Baseball Show returns on Friday.
At the 3-0 show, you've always got the green light.